So thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the graveyard shift. It looks like that I'm always given this shift, and I stand between you and lunch. And drinks. So for the what time did you say drinks are 5? So I've got you for the next 1 hour 25 minutes thereabouts.
There you go.
All right, good. I can talk for more, but thank you for the unique opportunity to be coming to this great event. And let me tell you one thing. I have never been to such an event. When Kim asked me, would you come and speak to DSO, I had to type what the hell that is, right? So I had to actually go and find out what that acronym was. I had to do a lot of research, right? But in order for me to understand, to give a bit of an understanding of, about myself and what I do and, what it took for me to come here, I need to give you a bit more of a background, right? So yes, I am the Chief Technology Officer for a company called Microfocus. It is a derivative company of many spin-offs, divestitures, and mergers, including HP, HPE, EDS, now called DXC, Novell in the past. So there's over 20 mergers and acquisitions that I have been personally impacted, being involved in. So Microfocus is the derivative result of all of these mergers and acquisitions. And about a month ago, we announced that we're being acquired by another company called OpenText. But meanwhile, I do a number of other things. I have my own consulting firm. I do. I am official member of the Forbes Technology Council, so I do write articles about technology, expert panels, etc. And I'm also, for some bizarre reason, somebody asked me to come and teach kids about cybersecurity. I've been in the technology sector for about 25 years. I'm only 51, but I started early. So I've been in the technology industry for 25 years. I've been in more than 50, maybe 60 countries. I have delivered, engaged in some of the largest projects the world has ever seen. And I have done some of the largest data center transformations, technology transformations, IT transformations, and now we call them digital transformations, right? So, but at the end of the day, it's all about how you transform your technology and how you enable your people and your processes. I will get to that people process technology here in a few minutes, right? Because I know that you've heard a lot about people process technology, so I'll get to that here in just a second. So, but your industry was new to me, right? So I actually, for the last, 2-3 months, I've done some research to understand, okay, what do you guys do, right? And how am I relevant to all this, right? So hopefully, I'm going to make things a little bit relevant to you. I know that a lot of the concepts and some of the terminologies that you have heard already, some of the terminology you have heard already, so don't think of it as a repeat. I'm just going to give you a different spin into all this, okay? With that, am I comprehensible? I know that I speak fast, I occasionally stutter, I occasionally lose train of thoughts. In case the accent hasn't given or the name, I am Greek, born and raised in Athens, Greece. The Athens, Greece, not Athens, Georgia, not Athens, Tennessee, or any of the 25 other Athenses around the United States. There are 25, by the way, I've checked it. So, and am I comprehensible?
Yes.
I also had a glass of wine. All right. Okay, and I'll have more at the end. Okay. All right, so I've been called that before. So in order for me to be able to search and understand what is it that you do, I always start with, what are you guys doing? What is your ecosystem? What is it that you do as a business, right? And for me to be able, I had to go and research all of these elements. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because there are some other components that I really want to focus on, right? But what happens in your industry happens in pretty much all of them, but for me it was a new thing, right? So you've got technology components, you've got your safety and privacy issues that you need to address, compliance, everyone and their mother now comes up with a new regulation, and you're already dealing with the existing ones such as HIPAA. There are phenomenal incidents around the cybersecurity, and we will touch on a couple of incidents that have had an impact on your industry as well. Meanwhile, your core business is to pull our teeth, fix our teeth, right? Well, not so brutally, but it's your business is to be able to address your patients, oral health care, use the latest and the most, the latest and the shiniest technologies when it comes to your practice, and of course, how to properly process all of that information, all of that data, all of the workflows, as we call them, in your industry, right? So once I understood all of that, right, and you probably know some of these things, because I'm a technologist, you know your stuff, I know my stuff, right? But once I understood your ecosystem, I said, okay, now I know what the hell I'm going to talk to them about, right? So I haven't even started. All right. So I am not going to spend too much time because you know this. This is what you typically do, right? You have the remote services that you are now touching upon, and we know that COVID-19 has been a catalyst, an accelerant to this, right? So anything around AR, VR, teledentistry, all of that is something that is having a heavy impact on your industry, right? The other one is the computerized services, so anything around the design of the different smart labs, the surgical guides, operation guides, 3D printing of teeth and everything in the oral environment. And of course, we have what we call the digital dentistry, advanced regenerative, I think dentistry is what you call it, intraoral tacts. I had to search what that is, by the way, right? And of course, all the other intelligent technologies that are coming into play. Everyone and their mother does AI today, right? And what else? Digital processes, where you've got so many things that they're coming onto you, and they say, where do I start? How do I address all of these things, right? I'm missing a slide, but that's okay. That I will speak to that. Now, what I found particularly interesting in the whole equation is that the challenges that you have in terms of your practice, right? The DSO, how DSO has an impact on you, is also faced with some challenges which are coming from factors that you do not necessarily have the control of, right? We know from fact that about 10% of the practitioners already use DSO technologies. We know that there is a lot of mergers and acquisitions of similar practices. We know that there is already a massive movement towards the overall DSO environment. But at the same time, you have to deal with things that you do not necessarily comprehend. IT is cumbersome. Trust me, I know. I've been doing it for the last 25 years. So you say, if I'm dealing with this, which is already a headache for me, what the hell do I do with this, right? So we understand that you have the opportunity, but at the same time, how do you address these different challenges? And on top of that, right, once you have figured out how the technology is working out, things happen, right? And I will start with a bad story, right? Things happen. The difference between an incident and a disaster is purely based on detection. And let me tell you what that is, right? Let's start with an event. An event, and I'm not picking on any particular company that may be represented here. This is probably an incident that had an impact on a number of small and medium-sized businesses, among them many in the dentistry and the medical industry altogether, right? So don't get me wrong if you see something that makes you feel rather uncomfortable, but it happened, right? So the Kasei attack happened about a year ago, right? I think it was sometime in July last year, right? And I know Datto is a company of, so I have don't get me wrong for presenting the Kasei attack, right? But what happens is the different cybersecurity incidents that happen today in the industry, they become almost systemic problems, systemic risks. Let me explain what that means, right? Yes, there was an attack. It was based on ransomware. Yes, they asked for money. They declined they ever pay the money, and that's good for them. They further down the road caught the guy, and they sued him for a material of $66 or $7 million or something like that, right? The numbers are all there, and you're going to get a presentation at the end. But what happens is that became a systemic issue. It wasn't just a company being attacked. it was eventually 1,500 small and medium-sized businesses that they were impacted by this. It could be your practice. I don't know if your practice was impacted or not, but it could be your practice. Think of the colonial pipeline, right? One company was affected, the whole United States was affected, right? We got the involvement of BI, we had the involvement of the agencies, we had the involvement of the president, and we had price gouging of up to 50 cents per gallon. So these events, these cybersecurity events, right, they become a systemic risk, not just a company had some particular issue and we fixed it and it's all nice hunky-dory, right? So that incident itself, right, scares the holy Jesus out of you. I think that's what the term is. And you say, do I need to go and invest in technology? Or how much of that technology? And how do I invest in technology, right? I'm getting to that, so bear with me, right? I'm starting with the bad news, then we're going to get to the good news. Right. So how we're going to get it right? Keep it simple. Keep things fairly simple. You have heard so far about the digital transformation, how you're going to do digital transformation and why you're going to do digital transformation, right? So I am not going to tell you why you need digital transformation, right? I'm going to tell you how to do it, right? So I'm not going to tell you why. Everyone and their mother does digital transformation today. But today I'm going to give you fairly simple steps on how to do it, how to start with it, okay? Because my original mentor one time said, in theory and practice are the same, but in practice they aren't. And I am a damn practitioner for the last 25 years. I have carried server, system, software on my back for the last 20 years. I've done some of the largest stuff in my life. So I'm going to give you basic how-tos, right? And I'll try to do it fairly entertaining. All right. What do you see here? Yeah, or an idiot who crashes Ferrari, right? Sorry. But it is a car built with a high reliable certified components. Do we all agree with this? Well, we can question whether Ferrari uses all the most reliable because it's Italian. But anyway, let's take that for a fact, right? Okay. And I'm Greek, by the way, right? Lesson number one. No matter how reliable it is, we can still break it. That idiot broke it, right? That's, all right? So you must accept the fact that technology will break. Right, by human error, by whatever it is, naturally human error, right? It will break. What is this? Yeah, I didn't know what it is. Yeah, but it's the London bus, or it's one of the mediums that the people us in the South will never use, right? We take our cars or pickup trucks, right? But it is a business continuity plan, right? You say, huh? Really? I said, it is an alternative that can provide the same thing. You can go from A to B using a different means. So technology, while it can break, you can still do your job. You can still find alternative ways to continue doing your job. Technology doesn't have to be complicated. It is complicated by nature, but through the necessary processes and through the necessary people engagement and reskilling, you can still do the work that you have to do, right? Between December 2021 and January 2022, so within 30 or 40 days, a very famous Amazon cloud provider, if you probably know them, right? Amazon Web Services went down 3 times. You know how many companies were impacted by this? All of them. All of them because they were hosted pretty much here in the United States. The ones that they literally survived the business is the ones that they had a very proper, very basic business continuity plan, right? And say, how do I recover? While they try to recover the cloud, how do I recover my business and continue the operations? Okay? Keep things simple. Anyone married with kids? All right, very realistic scenario, right? There is a water leak in your house, okay? And the kids are at home. What happens? They call you, what do you tell them? Call the plumber, right? Naturally, you will tell them, call the plumber. A more realistic one would be, okay, go to that room, switch the gear off, right? Switch the mains, call this number, get the guy to come over and fix it, right? Things can be that simple, provided that you have all the right processes, provided that you have enabled your people to do what they need to do at that time, right? It can be that simple, right? I'm getting there. I'm getting into the people process technology here in just 1 second. I just want to give you some understanding that technology scares people, and it doesn't have to scare people, okay? Simple things can actually work, okay? Now, what is business continuity planning? And you will understand what I'm getting. It is a process, right? It is a process of creating a system of 3 integral components, right? People, process, and technology to help continue running your business and to recover your business from a disaster. It is a system. Because everybody talks about people versus technology, people versus technology. Yeah, great, fantastic. Yeah, you can look at people versus technology, but very few actually look at them in a systemic way, as a system. The one will have naturally an impact on the other 2, right? No matter what you change. You change a version of the software, it's going to have an impact. You change people in your organization, somebody gets promoted, it's going to have an impact. You change a particular process simply because you've moved and you've modernized and you've gone to the cloud, it is going to have an impact, right? You have to think as systems, okay? And that is a major differentiation. Most of the people will just say people, process, and technology, and yeah, great, fantastic, we're going to do that, okay? I'm going to skip to that. Now, the risk ecosystem involves a number of people: risk officers, auditors, your board, internal compliance officers, external compliance, and regulators. It involves a lot of people. These are all the people you do not necessarily want to be involved when it comes to you. So you need to make sure that you have built the right solutions, you have built the right governance, you have built the right processes to make sure that all of them stay in communications, all of them are alert in case something happens. Any questions so far? Because either I've put you to sleep or this is getting very complicated. And I'm trying to keep things simple. Questions? All good? All right. So digital transformation. When people ask me, what is a digital transformation? Because everybody does it today, right? I can give you the most complex as you see it there, right? It's a process of profound and radical change that orients an organization into completely shifting their operating model and change the modus operandi. Great, fantastic, yeah, sure, that's it, this is it. There's 2 more definitions. The first one is Darth Vader. He was a Jedi, he was Anakin, Jedi, and he transformed to be Darth Vader. Pure transformation, right? He had the same skills, he had the same knowledge, he had the same technologies. He just changed the modus operandi, right? This is it. This is the best example of transformation. But, okay, that's a bit more fictitious. But let's get a realistic one, right? Over the last 7 years, and more specifically the last 3 years, we have been doing business in ways that we had never foreseen before, right? Since 2016, and I'm not getting political, the trade wars, embargo wars, the tax wars, everything that has happened between East and West, together with the pandemic, has shifted the way we do work today, right? People work remotely, right? People work, from the luxury of their homes. Right? We use a lot more digital systems. We use a lot more networking. Gone are the days where everybody went to the office and there was an enterprise security and there was an enterprise firewall and everybody was behind that firewall and therefore they were secure. No. Where was an office with 10,000 employees, now we have 10,000 offices, all with their own routers, all of them with their own Wi-Fis and everything. We have dramatically changed the way we socialize, the way we work, etc. So that is an enforced transformation that has happened onto us, and we are chasing that, right? So we continuously have to think as a system and say, what happens? What is that next change that is going to drive me? And what do I need to do in terms of the people, process, and technology, right? So Spiros will say, okay, we've heard that before. I say, okay, let's take one at a time. Let me see what's my next slide. Okay. When you talk about technology, first start that, does it make sense for me to invest in that technology? Will it make my life easier? Will it bring more customers? Will I complete my job better and faster and more efficient? First, you identify whether you actually have the need for that technology. Don't just buy technology simply because somebody tells you, oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah, fantastic. There's so many other bakers out there that make sliced bread. But make sure for your practice whether you're actually buying the right technology, right? And whether you actually need that technology. You don't need everything that is produced out there, okay? Secondly is identify what your people are capable of. People are saying, yeah, get enabled. How do you get enabled? First, you need to understand what is the profile of the people. You need to conduct what we call a skills gap analysis to understand the profiles of these people. Are they introverts, extroverts? Are they old school, new school? Are they able to learn something new, or are they just waiting for a couple more years to retire? You need to have a very proper and very strong profile of who you're dealing with. Who are you working with, right? So do that skills assessment of your people to know where you're starting from. Because some of the people might not even want to do this, right? You can enforce certain things. Some people will say, I don't want it, right? And they will just leave. It's a natural thing it's a human nature, right? Some people do not necessarily want the change. And when it comes to processes, you need to identify, are my processes effective, and do I need to re-engineer my processes? Do I need to build a brand new one, right? Sometimes you need to scrap something and you need to rebuild a complete process. But you always need to say, if I change that technology bit, what do I need to do for that person who is operating it? Do I need to reskill him? Do I need to get something to him? Do I need to get another person because now the workload has enlarged? And by the way, what is that impact on my processes? Am I doing the backups? From the most simple ones, am I doing the backups correctly? Right? Am I processing the workflows? Am I doing the information, the data flows between my practice and the payers and the industry and the insurance companies right? These are all things that you must do almost at every single day, because technology moves so fast. They're happening so fast that it's almost, that's why I keep saying it's a systemic thing, right? It's almost like the engine of your vehicle. You drive the vehicle, there are laws and regulations on how to drive it, right? And every day something changes. Something in your car might change, right? There is a natural change in the vehicle over the years. Some one-way street has opened up. Something. So you have to do this in a systemic way. Have I lost you already? Okay. So why do typical transformations fail, right? Because they only focus on technology, right? They only look at things in silo, and they do not necessarily, they try to enhance the existing versus sometimes challenge the status quo. Right? They say, okay, if I take this and I do a version up, or I give this guy a little bit more training, things is going to be all great. No, it doesn't work that way, right? 75 of what they call today digital transformation projects, they fail miserably, right? And some of these projects are really, really large in nature, in resources, right? They consume people, they consume money, and ultimately, when they go bad, they consume the morale of an organization, and you do not want that, okay? So start by addressing all of that in a very, very, again, I will not grow tired by saying, think of this in a very systemic way, okay? And on top of that, right, you've got other pressing pressing issues that you have in your environment, right? Regulation, data privacy. I don't want to go into the details because I believe the other gentleman, Michael from Datto, he covered that element very, very well, okay? So you have to continue to monitor everything that is happening within your industry, and there is a lot. And sometimes you do not have enough hands, you do not have enough people, you don't have enough time to do all that. This is where experts come in, right? I will not claim myself an expert, I can tell you that. But there are quite a few people out there that they can give you the right advisory and consulting. They can help you with the technology integration. They can help you with project management, right? But when you select one, make sure that they have done this themselves. Make sure that they've done this before. Because everybody, like I said, in theory and practice are the same, but in practice they aren't. You really need to find the proper practitioners that have actually driven or who actually executed transformations in the past. Whether they have called them data center transformations or cloud transformation, technology transformation, IT transformation, doesn't matter. People who actually have hands-on experience and they can walk you through the very first steps of what is it that I need to build, how I want myself to be operating in the future, what is my starting line, what is my baseline, where am I starting from, and then they can help you build that roadmap of activities, of projects, of actions that you as an organization must undertake to get to that goal. It's not an easy ride. Right? It's by all means, it's not an easy ride, right? But once you've started, right, it's what Yoda said, do or do not. There's no try. I think it was episode 6, right? 5 or 6. Yoda. What? That was Yoda. Didn't I say Yoda? Oh, okay, I didn't, so Master Yoda, do or do not. Okay, yeah, so do or do not, there's no try. You gotta start. Don't stop halfway. Don't start in the beginning. Once you've decided to do it, you gotta go all the way to the completion. And by the way, there is no completion when it comes to digital transformation. It's almost like a never evolve me situation. Because when you said, oh great, 3 years plan, successfully done, right? Ready to hit the market now. Guess what? Something is gonna happen. I said that a couple of years ago. I said, yeah, great, fantastic, 2022, we're ready to hit now the market. Yay, we're being acquired. Guess what? We're going to go through another transformation ourselves, right? And then that will have an impact on our customers as well. So it's a normal. I don't want to call it a moving target because moving target scares people, right? But it is a process that you continuously have to evaluate what the environment looks like, what are external factors that you have control or you may not have control that have an impact on your program and how you're going to address. So how do you get started? And I think that's probably one of my last slides because I think I'm running out of time. Unless I can stay up here and talk forever, right? Figure out what your ecosystem is. Don't just say it's my practice. Look at your entire ecosystem, your customers, your buyers, your suppliers, right? Look at, go beyond the doors of go beyond the walls of your office premises, right? Go and look at everyone who has some level of interaction with you. Evaluate these relationships. See how they may have an impact on you and your business, right? The ecosystem focus, and of course, don't forget the customer focus. It's equally important to tell the customers, this is how I'm going to offer services to you at the end of this journey, or as the journey moves along. Very few people actually communicate. Very few companies actually communicate. And that is also another big issue when it comes to transformation. They neglect to communicate. I think one of the ladies who spoke at the women's panel earlier today said, communicate. I think you had a specific question to one of them, right? And she got it right. Communication was the number one element, or should be the number one element when it comes to transformation, because you need to onboard people, you need to enable people, people are always scared when something radical happens. Communications is key when it comes to transformation. And you do not need to do everything, right? There's no need to do everything. If AI is relevant for your business, fine, take AI. My coffee maker does AI, by the way, right? Everybody claims to be doing AI these days, right? But fine, do AI. Find out which AI technology, find out which AI use case is applicable to you, right? Modernize and move. Do you want to move to the cloud? Fine. If it makes sense for you to move to the cloud, fine, go ahead and do it, right? But don't try to boil the ocean. Some of these use cases may not be relevant to you. Simply because somebody else does it doesn't mean that you have to do it, okay? Figure it out, score them. Take one out of the equation, or say, you know what, I'm not going to do it now. I'm probably going to revisit this, a year or two from now. You don't have to do everything simply because the industry best practices tell you such a thing, or because Forrester or IDC or Gartner are telling you this. By the way, nothing against them. I'm a keynote speaker to IDC and Gartner all the time, right? But you don't have to do everything that analysts say that you should do. Okay, so bit of a marketing thing, right? What we do, what I do, right, and by all means I'm no expert, right, is first we can help you identify what is your right digital transformation strategy or transformation strategy altogether, right? We help you to understand the as is, the to be, and we help you build that roadmap in a very pragmatic, down-to-earth, simple steps going from the old to the new, right? We give you choice. We're agnostic. I don't care whether you're going to go with vendor A or vendor B. I don't care. Some people do, right? But I do not care, right? So you have the choice of saying Azure or AWS, or you can go with Datto versus another Datto, right? I don't care. We are very agnostic when it comes to technology. We're not locking you into some particular vendor, right? And we always suggest solutions that they are open and that they are forward-looking, okay? We want to make sure that you are not down the road, come up and say, you know what, that was the wrong choice of technology. You should scrap this, rip and replace, I think it's called in political terms today, right? We do not want you to come and do this and implement this and then replace that technology with something different, okay? So, I know I've said a lot. I know you're all tired. I know that sometimes I may sound incomprehensible, or sometimes, I unpack way too much information. But do you have any questions for me?
I have a question.
Please.
How do you know, what are some good flags that indicate that it's time to consider a transformation?
Ooh, beautiful question, right? You know the typical question, what keeps you up at night? My kids keep me up at night, nothing else, right? But the moment, there are signals, and there are business signals, and then of course there are sentiments that a person, as a senior executive within the organization. Sometimes the first signal is you go from what appears to be red to more red, right? No, it's when you look at your budget, right, and you say I've overspent there, or do not manage my resources well, right, or my systems are overutilized and I still do not get the efficiency. When I have so many hits and misses and hits on different systems in my customer support, in things like that, or I missed revenue, there are always KPI metrics that that will say, got to do something about this, right? Because I am from green to yellow to red, and then even then purple, right? So, and every organization will have their own. Continue monitoring this. That's your first indication. But I do believe that the seasoned executive always knows. If on a Monday morning gets up in the morning and says, "Oh God, I got to go there and I have this issue," right? You kind of know that I got to address something, and it's irrelevant to what the market is telling me. It is irrelevant that the market is telling me, you got to do digital transformation. You say, I got to address this. But the moment you find out that you got to address this, you need to go into as a system and say, if I do something about this problem, what is going to be the impact, right, on the other systems, right? And if I have more than two systems, perhaps I should build a program, an umbrella program, which I'm going to call it and Holy Christian it like transformation or whatever we want to do it, right? Darth Vader, right? And say, I'm going to place all of these tactical projects underneath that, but they must follow the key principle that it is systemic, it focuses on people, process, and technology, right? And it has specific metrics to address. So there is a sentiment, and obviously there are KPIs. Very few people look at their KPIs, by the way. I was invited by a guy, senior VP of one of the largest oil and gas companies in the Middle East, right? You have 30 minutes to tell me why you're here. You invited me. You've given me 30 minutes, so I'll tell you why you're here. Guess what? I stayed for 8 hours, and the next day we signed up a contract for about another 6 months, right? And he had never seen his own KPIs. He had them, he had never seen them. I said, you start from there, right? Very few people, they think you know what? Because they are afraid of the bad news, right? I got to do an oil change. Oh God, I got to do an oil change. It's dreadful to do an oil change, right? People are afraid of bad news. So they hide it under the carpet, So let's go there. Don't worry, it's not that bad. It was bad, but it's not that bad, right? But it's that kind of a sentiment that gives you an understanding that you got to look at something. Other questions? I'm going to keep you.
I have another question. Nobody's asking that, but earlier in the presentation, you talked about, the transformation and it fails. What constitutes a failure?
Again, two things. The first one is, there's two sides to a failure. What an industry perceives as a failure, right? And what an organization might perceive as a failure, right? Indications of failure means that for some reason that project that started ends. And I have seen projects just ending right there. Second one is that you had built certain KPIs to measure yourself against the transformation. Say, when I get there, this is my goals. And when you get there, no, you're not anywhere near. And you say, that failed, okay? But it may not have failed. Maybe your goals there were way too extravagant, right? You say, you know what? I am going to be the best thing on planet Earth. You're not, right? Or sometimes they measure the scores themselves against other companies. I think, again, one of the ladies said, no two companies are ever the same, right? You have to build the measures for yourself. Yes, there are guidelines, industries, etc., but you have to really build the metrics that are appropriate to your organization, right? So failure can be a project that has stopped. Failure can be the metrics were not met, right? Failure means that usually what happens, and what I've seen for the most part, is the scope of the transformation started to be X, and sometimes ends up to being a third of an X or half an X because they say, it's too much. But they hadn't scoped it right, okay? There are ways to recover a project, and I've recovered many projects in my life, right? I've saved companies from legal troubles in the past, right? You can actually save. So there's a certain degree there's a degree that you can save certain things, right? Any other questions? Yes.
So kind of the flip side of that, success, right? And I think that's obviously the goal for any digital transformation. How do you, or in your experience, where do you think expectations lie, both on the vendor side and with the customer, to reach that success?
The typical metrics that come from the customer side is usually the customer experience metrics, right? I'm happy, thumbs up, green thumbs up, and things like that. How was your experience when you walked out of the Atlanta bathroom airport this morning? You pressed the green button, things like that. I am not kidding you. Some of these things are actually very realistic, right? I mean, the customer experience could be as simple as that, right? So your customers are happy to return, right? And I'm putting that into context of that particular industry. Or you have no lost revenues, right? When you do the paperwork between you, your practice, and your insurance and others, right? Or when you have no compliance issues, right? These are all success metrics that are relevant both to your customer as well as the project, the transformation project itself, right? But success also has to give you a degree of business satisfaction. Now, Spiros, what do you mean business satisfaction? Business satisfaction means that I feel good about going to work. I feel good that my practice is growing, and I have the numbers to indicate that I'm actually doing better than I was doing last year. Okay, so there are always metrics, but there are also customer experience sentiments that come into play, right? When you go onto the Twitters of this world, right? The social media, and you know what? I visited this and it was great, right? And your scores keep up. You know how many people actually measure the scores on social media and the Google ratings and things like that? You won't believe it, but there is a lot, right? So that can actually have an influence on you and say, I'm actually doing something good. I better keep up, right? There are a lot of information and there's a lot of data that come from multiple sources that you can actually analyze. Right? I'm not going to tell you what. I mean, again, it's only relevant to per industry, per customer. But there's so many metrics you can actually analyze and say, you know what? I'm actually doing a very good job. If you're a company that has never been breached, or if you're a company that, any company, technology company that's never been breached, you're actually doing something good when it comes to cybersecurity. Okay? Again, it's only an example. Keep things simple. I can't stress this enough, right? People are saying, oh, it's the most complex thing you're ever going to do in your life. It isn't, right? I'm not saying it's a walk in the park. No, but once you start putting things in a proper thinking, systems thinking, you start thinking about the people, the process, and the technology, how the one interacts with the other, right? It's going to be perhaps one of the best and most fulfilling projects your organization can undertake. Okay, again, I don't want to brag, but I've done some really phenomenal work for some of the most complex clients, and you would say, oh my God, this, yeah, but it can be done. Beer time? Anybody else? Any other questions? You can catch me, I'll be here for cocktails and drinks. But thank you again for your time. I don't know whether it was useful. I don't know whether you got something out of this one. But thank you for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this session. And I did a lot of work.